So this one isn't going to be a long video, but I had to talk about this because I saw this. I was thinking about NXT 2.0 last night, and as I woke up this morning, and I saw an article on Bleacher Report that was posted, and I just want to give them credit. This was under their WWE link, WWE rumors on Vince McMahon. So according to the Bleacher Report, it says Vince McMahon wants NXT to be edgier product. WWE Chairman Vince McMahon is reportedly looking to appeal to a younger demographic with the new NXT 2.0 product. According to Fightful Select, and they reference H. Jenkins of Ringside News, McMahon suggested the use of more adult language and themes, as well as, quote, more lenience, unquote, regarding the ring gear of female wrestlers. McMahon also reportedly wants NXT wrestlers to, quote, keep up with current affairs with promos and character verbiage, end quote. It was noted by Fightful that McMahon primarily wants to target the 18 to 34-year-old demographic with the new version of NXT. This is great. This is encouraging. This is beautiful, and this is just great to hear from Vince. Great to hear from the WWE. But you got to ask a question here. Why isn't this done across the board? So you don't want to appeal to this demographic on Raw? You don't want to appeal to this demographic on SmackDown? You don't want to appeal to this demographic at your pay-per-views? I don't understand how NXT 2.0, you say you're going to give lenience to the women, using their assets, their physical assets. It used to be that you had attractive women in wrestling, and if they were good wrestlers, great, and if they weren't, great. Because you could still use something. There's still something to their character, to their aura. They were good on the mic. They were good actors. Or maybe they were just beautiful. And it was just interesting. There used to be an edge to the show. To Raw, to SmackDown. You felt it. And there was an edge to wrestling as a whole, but there was an edge to Vince McMahon's product specifically. Now, I'm not surprised that AEW comes along and suddenly there's an attitude about, wait, how do we get some of the audience that's going over there to watch our stuff? The same thing happened with WCW. They put pressure on McMahon in the 90s. Suddenly you had the Attitude Era. ECW was around. Suddenly they had the Attitude Era. So it doesn't surprise me that he's thinking this. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. But my question is, why aren't you doing this on your main roster? And for those who are going to say, well, this is a developmental program. Well, I thought about that too. I understand the logic of NXT 2.0. The logic is he didn't feel like the NXT original program was producing WrestleMania main event characters or wrestlers. So he would take those wrestlers, change them or bury them, and everybody who loved NXT would hate him for it and hate the main shows for it. And at the same time, if Vince is looking to have someone who could compete with a Brock Lesnar, someone who could beat up a Bill Goldberg, then I totally get what he's doing. Braun Breaker is that guy. The tag team from the Diamond Mine, they're those guys. Even Carmelo Hayes, he's shorter, but he's built. He's an athlete. So is the guy he's with, whose name I don't remember. All the guys who you're seeing on NXT now, they all look like athletes. They're either athletes or gym rats. And that's very, very important to distinguish. They're either athletes or gym rats. That's who Vince McMahon is pushing right now, because he believes that's who he can develop into WWE main eventers. And I agree with that. He certainly can. But the question remains, if you have a program that has 2 hours of television time on the USA Network, okay, which is not a small channel. It's the same channel that you have Raw on, and Raw was 2 hours for the first 20 years of its existence. I have to ask the simple question. What's the difference between Raw and NXT other than the size of the arena? Why aren't you having edgier promos, edgier language? Why aren't you allowing Mandy Rose to come out on Raw? Why aren't you having confrontations like you had at the beginning of NXT last night? Why don't you have that on Raw? Why don't you have even the wrestlers themselves on Raw? I mean, if you don't like what you're getting out of Raw and SmackDown, then get rid of them. Get rid of the writers. Just start fresh. Bring up all these guys. You have a draft coming up. Why don't you, in every sport, in a draft, you have the people who are drafted and people who are undrafted. You have undrafted free agents, right? Why don't you call the NXT roster the undrafted free agents? Make Raw edgier. It's called Raw. So this is not meant to be a knock on Vince or the WWE. This is actually a compliment, but an encouragement. Go ahead. Push forward. You have hit a home run with the show that you changed. Now, I understand and empathize with people who liked NXT original. Those are the fans who are going to like AEW. Those are the fans who are going to like Impact Wrestling. Those are the fans who are going to like a lot of the indie wrestlers and a lot of the indie shows because they do feature the smaller, more athletic guys. There's a fast pace, and there's less of an emphasis on the structure of the show, the storyline, and more of an emphasis on the action, right? The planchas, the dives, and all that stuff. Not to say that it's void of all the other things in wrestling, but that's not the emphasis. And if you like that, that's great. I like it sometimes too. But when I look at NXT 2.0, in isolation from what it's substituting in for, NXT 2.0 has edge. The vignettes are great. The language of the wrestler, the attitude, the tone of the show, the pace of the show, everything about it is great. What I'm seeing from this article and based on what the product has shown so far is that this is what Vince wanted. It's not an accident. The next steps, I would assume, there's going to be tables, there's going to be chairs, there's going to be hardcore matches, cage matches. There's going to be things and other elements that they're going to add to this that fit the mold of what I'm seeing. But what Vince McMahon described as what he wanted for NXT 2.0 is basically the World Wrestling Federation, circa 1996 to 2003 or whatever. It's World Championship Wrestling. It's Extreme Championship Wrestling. He described wrestling from the past. He described wrestling that I grew up on. The wrestling I grew up on had lenience when it came to female ring gear and the way that they walked and talked and act. It had lenience with regard to the language and the promos. It had an edge to it. And it did appeal to the 18 to 34. And here's a dirty little secret, guys. When you appeal to the 18 to 34, you capture the rest of the kids. Because a 40-year-old is more likely to enjoy something that a 30-year-old will like than they would like what a 10-year-old likes. And a 10-year-old is more likely to want to imitate what the 18-year-old likes versus what the 5-year-old likes. So appealing to that key demographic is a smart move. That's what you used to do. This is what you were. So this is great. And they've done a great job. Everybody involved. I'm not going to pretend to know who's running things second to second backstage. I don't. I heard it's Kevin Dunn producing. I heard Shawn Michaels is there. I know Triple H with his health issue isn't there moment to moment. I'm sure he's in contact with them at some level, right? But even regardless, give credit where credit is due to whoever is running the program. It's great. But I have to ask, why don't you do the exact same thing with Raw? And whether it's replacing the wrestlers or whether it's just replacing the tone, the pace, the attitude, etc., I don't know what it is. But NXT 2.0 hits it on the button, and Raw and SmackDown do not. Regardless of how much I like Roman Reigns. Can you imagine how much better Roman Reigns would be in this atmosphere? I'm not talking about the size of the arena, which I love the set, by the way. I've said it a million times. If you follow my YouTube channel or my Twitch feed or any of my tweets on Twitter at Corner Arcade, then you'll know I've said this before. The set reminds me of WCW Worldwide and WCW Saturday Night, which were great programs. Great wrestling. This is wrestling. And believe it or not, Vince did grow up on wrestling. This is good. And kudos to them. Really. There's no sarcasm here at all. No rancor in my voice. No rancor. So I think it's imperative that they continue with this. I think it's imperative that they keep going and they press this and copy and paste it into Raw and SmackDown. Can you imagine if you took the audience that Raw and SmackDown had and exposed them to this kind of wrestling? I mean, this is the best show WWE has. I would go to Florida just to watch this. This is great. This is my favorite wrestling program of the week. Because instead of bits and pieces of what I like in AEW being here, it's the whole freaking show, RVD. This is the whole freaking show. It's a great job. But they have to copy this over because, as I said before, is NXT 2.0 truly developmental? I don't think it is, and here's why. NXT 2.0 may not be going head-to-head with another wrestling program, and NXT 2.0 may not be Raw or SmackDown, but it's on the USA Network, it's not on the WWE Network. And even though you have mainly up-and-coming wrestlers now dominating the program, which is awesome, by the way, and it's great if you like these guys, guess what? Vince McMahon approves of this program, which means that when these guys do get called up, he's not going to destroy them. He's not going to argue. He's not going to say, I don't want to push them, I don't want to put them on, and blah, 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 blah. He's going to agree with them because guess what? This was his product. It's going to work out better in the long run for the fans who like the guys who are there. Braun Breaker's not going to go to Raw or SmackDown and get buried and have his character ruined. If you like the way he is now, he's going to be that way when he moves up. Same thing with everybody else there. But I would argue that this show is so much better than Raw and SmackDown, they shouldn't call people up. They should bring the whole freaking show up. I mean, they should just... And I've wondered this for a long time. And I know this is going to sound nuts, but I almost think WWE needs to get rid of Raw or SmackDown. Or they need to add a main event show like this. I mean, NXT right now feels like a third main event show. It doesn't feel like developmental. Developmental to me is offline, so it would be a show that maybe you could go to once a week in Florida that's basically built out of the Performance Center. Or it would be a show that's on the WWE Network. When you put in something on national TV and you have A-level production, that's not developmental. I mean, yes, you are developing the talent for your other shows, but I would argue this is the best show you have. Everything that Vince stated he wants for the show makes this the best show that they have. I would love to hear an argument as to how it's not. I would love for someone to explain to me how this isn't better than Raw or SmackDown. I would love to hear that because I don't see how you can make that case. SmackDown has Roman Reigns, but other than that, it's still hokey. It still doesn't always flow. And Raw, we all know, Raw is slow. It's 3 hours. It drudges along, and there's no edge to it at all. NXT is doing everything right. So I wouldn't just continue with what I have with NXT. I would convert NXT to the upper roster. I don't know how you do it, whether you bring all the guys up at once, whether you actually create a new program. I don't think you'll ever get rid of Monday Night Raw, but you might want to change from SmackDown, or you might want to just stop considering NXT developmental and treat it like an A-brand show, because it is now. And I don't know if Vince meant it to be this way. I don't think he did. I think he thought he was going to develop talent. But why can't the main event of NXT be the main event of WrestleMania if the show is better? Now, the ratings are not going to be as high because they don't have the background that Raw and SmackDown have. But I got to think that at some point, if you really want to refresh your product, WWE, Why not have WWE Nitro? Why not have WWE Thunder? Why not have WWE Extreme? Why not have NXT Pro? Why not? I mean, do something, or have a totally different name of a show. Have WWE Reckoning, WWE Ringside. I don't know. Come up with something else. Like, have a new show that's an A brand show. And the audience that loves NXT 2.0 is a different audience that loves AEW. And I like wrestling, period, right? So I don't like to play team sports, but if you were to dig into the data and even do some polling, I think you'd find that the people who love NXT 2.0, not the people who just watch it because they've always watched NXT, but I'm talking about the people who really love NXT 2.0. I don't think those are the same people that are in love with AEW. I think it's a new audience. And if they would advertise Braun Breaker as Bronson Rex Steiner or Rex Steiner, you could definitely suck back in some of the audience that has stopped watching wrestling. Because I told somebody who used to watch WCW this past weekend, I specifically brought it up to him because I know he used to watch WCW, he doesn't watch WWE, he doesn't watch wrestling now. And I said, hey, Scott Steiner's nephew and Rick Steiner's son is the main player in NXT 2.0. And he said, really? I didn't even know he had kids. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, this guy looks like a Steiner. He moves like a Steiner. He's going to be a superstar. Vince hit a home run with this guy. And he said, wow. I was like, bro, you going to watch now? Would you tune in if I told you this guy was on TV and it was Steiner? And he said, absolutely. So you're missing the boat there. So there's my critique. You're missing the boat. Braun Breaker's great. I mean, this is a home run. This is that talent that you were looking for. It's a home run. But you got to call him Steiner. Don't call him Breaker. Call him Steiner. Call him Rex Steiner. Call him Bronson Steiner. Call him whatever. Braun Steiner. Whatever you want to call him. Kid Papa Pump. Whatever. But recognize who he is. And don't run away from what you own. You own the library, which contains most of the Steiner brothers' career. So go with it. I mean, don't run away from what you have. It's your library. So, I mean, that would be my point there with the Steiner kid. But look, he's getting notoriety. People know who he is. I just think masterful job so far with this program. And I think the sky's the limit for this whole thing with NXT 2.0. I just hope that they take what they're doing in NXT 2.0 and they bring it to the main roster. Because there's one problem that I could foresee when you start bringing people up, and I hope Vince McMahon is thinking about this already. If you have an edgier product in NXT, and you bring up guys who have been in this edgier product, and then you bring them to Raw and SmackDown, which are less edgy, does that dilute the character? I mean, the show suffers on its own, but does the character that you're bringing up to help move the show along, to make the show better, does the character lose its luster because suddenly Bronson's Breaker or whatever you're calling him, he can't say bitch. Suddenly the females who come up, they can't wear the same clothes they were wearing. Suddenly you can't have the same violent interaction, the same tone of the show, the same edge. So you dilute and lower the wrestler that you've brought up. So that's why you can't have the main shows being less edgy. You have to have the whole program being edgy. You have to have the whole company being edgy. And frankly, AEW is not going anywhere, folks. Because unlike WCW, AEW is owned by a family. So it's not owned by TNT and Time Warner. It's owned by the Khan family. So as long as they're interested in the program and they have television, they're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to have the conflict that you had with Time Warner. And I know people are going to go through and say, oh, well, it wasn't just that. It was Bischoff. It was Russo. Well, you want to blame different people, which I disagree with. It's fine. But the problem with WCW was that regardless of what our opinions are about the product, is that it was a company that had different levels of decision-making, and one of those was Time Warner, AOL Time Warner. So even if somebody who loved the product or wanted to support the program, felt that way in management, they were overridden. AEW is not the case. AEW, you have the father, and then you have the son who runs the show. So they're not going to go away in 2 years. They're not going to go away in 5 years. And I got news for you. The ratings keep growing, so TNT is not going to take them off television. TNT is making a push for sports. They have one championship MMA. They acquired license to have the NHL split with ESPN, and they still have the NBA, and TBS has baseball, including the postseason, right? Plus college basketball, and they have wrestling. So they're telling you they're going after a certain audience right now. They're not going to get rid of AEW when they just did 1.3 million. So Vince should know AEW is not going anywhere. So instead of just making NXT the edgy, interesting, exciting show that fans have been dying for 20 years with WWE, they should be doing the same thing on Raw and SmackDown. This way, when Braun Breaker goes to SmackDown or when the Diamond Mine goes to Raw, they're still interesting. They're still edgy because the program doesn't dilute that. That's very important. I mean, the easiest analogy I can come up with would be if you're a bartender and you mix a drink together and it has a certain amount of alcohol content, right? If you took that drink and you pour it into someone's glass, but the glass has half the glass full of water, then the drink gets diluted, right? It's not the same drink. That's the same thing that you'd be doing if you don't make the rest of your company edgy. Fox, I don't think, would argue with you. I know USA won't because it's the same network. And certainly your pay-per-views won't be an argument because it's on your own network. It's on Peacock. So come on. Other than that, nothing but good things to say about this. I love it. It's my favorite wrestling show now. I really look forward to it every week. I am looking forward to AEW tonight. Don't get me wrong. I do think the Cody Rhodes Malachi Black will probably be my favorite match of the night, just because I really like Malachi Black's entrance. I like his character, and Cody's always a solid in-ring performer. I love his style of wrestling. So, I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be a good night for AEW. Believe it or not, I actually had a ticket, or I have an offer to go to the show. I turned it down, though, because where I'm located, I'm in New Jersey, and it would be hard after work for me to make it out there this last second. And I did not go to the show last week, even though it was here. I'll probably catch them next time around, but I'll be enjoying it on my couch. I'm sure Rampage will be solid this week, too. They're doing an extra, I guess that's an extra hour this week because they're in the same facility that they're doing Dynamite, so it should be good. It should be very good. I'm excited. It should be a good night. I hope that they score a big rating and they continue to put pressure and we get more good stuff out of WWE because of it. But everybody wins in these scenarios. So, I mean, Tuesday, Wednesday is definitely the best nights of wrestling. It's cool to have this good product in the middle of the week. The only problem with NXT is you got to wait a whole week to get more of it. But it's good stuff, man. I mean, it's good enough I would even rewatch it. That's how good it is, especially some of the Braun Breaker stuff. So, congrats. I hope that they keep going. And, we get more of this for next week. I'll definitely be talking more and more about this. Look out for the channel on YouTube, Twitch. We're going to be doing some more streaming, some live streaming, some games that I wanted to review and talk about. I also want to do a little bit of a deep dive into MLB The Show 21, the one for Xbox Series X. I want to do a deep dive into the retro mode. I was talking about baseball and talking sports while showing that mode, but I really didn't talk about why I like the mode, some of the things I'd like to see improved with it. But that's going to be coming up on the Twitch channel, and I will have that posted here on the YouTube channel as well. So I try to bring a variety of content. I talk sports, I talk wrestling. I stay away from politics on here because I don't want to depress you, but I'm certainly capable of talking world events, but I'm not going to do that here. And I like to do game reviews. Again, it's the corner arcade, so we got to talk video games. Got to show video games. So I will be streaming. I may do that stream later today. We'll see how the day plays out. But look out for that stuff. If you like sports, if you like baseball, we'll talk about that. I also do plan on doing another stream on WWE 2K. I have 18 and 20 loaded up on my Series X. I do play both for different reasons. I have done a stream on 2K20 before. I'll do another one, and we'll talk about what we're looking forward to in some of the other wrestling games coming out. The Wrestling Code, as well as the AEW Wrestling video game, whenever that's gonna be released, and much more. So look out for stuff on the channel. I do not ask for people to like or subscribe until after they actually see the content. No offense to the YouTube community, but I think that's so silly and obnoxious. Why would you ask somebody to subscribe to your channel and ask for alerts before they actually watch the video? What if they've never seen you before and they think this stuff is stupid? So if you think this was good and you want more, I got plenty more. Trust me. Check out the channel. But if you don't. Simple as that. Alright, guys. I'll catch you later. Peace.